me for the next few days, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the 2022 edition of Law 2.0 and Money 2.0 conference, brought to you by our gold sponsor, FidiPay, and silver sponsor, iBlockchain. Today, our distinguished speakers will provide insight into the future of law and finance. We have an amazing lineup of industry professionals who will be presenting on topics ranging from legal strategies to investment management. I'm confident that all of us here today will have an incredible learning experience and productive dialogue during the next 3 days. Before we start, I would like to ask you to please tag us on any social media that you would have, so LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Please feel free to hashtag Law2Conf and Money2Conf. So 2 is the number 2, Law2Conf and Money2Conf, and we would love to be a part of your stories. All right, and now without further ado, let us begin the first session of day 1. As data privacy regulations become increasingly complex, the need for greater transparency and consistency across jurisdictions has never been more evident. We will use this panel discussion to delve into current developments and future considerations when it comes to building a harmonized legislative ecosystem around data protection and privacy rights. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the first panel discussion of the day. And the topic of this panel will be on data privacy and compliance, the need for review for creation of a standardized global legislative ecosystem. And so I would like to call upon our panelists, Mr. Ray Vikram Nath, founder and partner at Aretha Legal. Welcome, Ray. Mr. Ioannis Giannakakis, CEO and co-founder of CityContact. Welcome, sir. Mr. Sanjeev Gathani, CEO at BBG APAC Pte. Welcome, Sanjeev. And Ms. Rawan Abdel Nour, Legal and Compliance Advisor at Ghurair Group. Welcome, everyone.
So I think, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be in Dubai. It's my first visit to Dubai. And I was asked to moderate this panel by all 3 members on this panel, Mr. Ioannis, Mr. Sanjeev, and Ms. Rawan. Frankly, I was delighted to be the moderator because, the moderator's role is to ask questions and not speak. And the 3 members on this dais, they have more knowledge on this topic than I do. So thank you for that. And I think without further ado, I've been pressed with time. So this topic is very interesting. I think what's data privacy and what are the importance of data privacy, which we should all know. And as we go globally local with the information being shared, I think it's very important to learn and to have the knowledge of why data privacy is required. And when we are sharing information from one jurisdiction to the other, it becomes even more important to understand the nuances of the legal jurisprudence of various countries relating to data privacy. So let me start with the most important question. I think I'm going to pose it to all the members on this panel. That is it at all important to have a harmonized global regime for data privacy? And before we can begin with that question, if I would request Mr. Ioannis to explain a little bit of what data are we talking about? I mean, is it the data which is normal data which is being transmitted between the 2 individuals, or is it particular kind of a data which, when we talk about data privacy, if you can give,
Thank you, Ray. So good morning, everybody. Delighted to be here with you and delighted to be in Dubai. So as data is the new oil in the digital age that we're all living, it's extremely important to attempt to try to harmonize the different privacy regimes around the globe. Now I think it's the time to do that, since both the European Union and the United States have introduced privacy legislation that can be harmonized, in my opinion, versus previous decades where the gaps between the various countries were huge. So to answer your question, Ray, we are discussing mainly about personal data or personally identifiable information, as we call it in the US.
But what particular data are we talking about? Is it some particular, name of an individual or phone number or email? When we talk about data, what does that mean? It means
when we talk about personal data, we are talking about any type of information that can identify either directly or indirectly a person, a natural person.
Okay,
So it can span from obvious data like the name, the address, the identity card, to indirect identifiers like geolocation data, for instance.
okay. Okay, and to add to that, can I then ask you? I mean, if it is regarding personal data, which this information is being transmitted all over the world, right? So to ask the question, the more important question, is it at all important? I mean, I can start with Rawan on this point. That is it at all important to harmonize this regime? I mean, is it at all important to have a global privacy laws or a regime?
Thank you, Ray. I think it's very important to I think it's very important to harmonize the data. Why? Because we have several types of data, like personal data, sensitive data, whatever type of data. Data is floating all over the world. We have cloud, we have so many Facebook, we have Instagram, we have social media communication. So it's very important. Also, we have data inside the organizations and through individual data. So it's very important because data is floating all over the world. It's very important to harmonize it. Like we have one global law. I know it's not easy, but because sometimes some countries will be rigid to their local laws and regulation, but at least the minimum common things or ideas in the GDPR, they can accept it and use it for data harmonization.
Okay, so and Sanjeev, what do you think? I mean, is it time that we have a global regime for for data privacy?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Ray, for the good question. I think data harmonization law is very, very important today, right? More than ever before, because today we are living in a borderless world, right? You can move people and data across seamlessly. So if you do not have a basic baseline, it's going to cause a lot of problems. And going with what my fellow panelists have mentioned, right, it's very important we know why we are collecting the data, how we are using it, how we are going to dispose it, and how we are going to store it, right? So it's basically your CUDS. Collect, use, dispose, and store. So you need to have a basic baseline law. And like what all my panelists have said, if you do not have that, it's going to be a problem, because Europe, as we know, is the gold standard in data privacy laws. And then you got the US, and then you got Asian countries, and then you got the Middle East. And now Africa also is going into that space. So it's very, very important we understand, because today, in the new world, data is money. Money is not data, right? So that's my 2 cents worth for now.
So Sanjeev, I think you hit on the right note when you're talking about everything is working on artificial intelligence, for instance. Now, when we, even when I was traveling to Dubai, I had to go through a screening process where my biometrics were taken, and I mean, all this data is going somewhere. We don't know where, but as per the laws, I mean, I'm from India, so I can tell you from Indian perspective that in India, if you are collecting a data, you need to get the permission from the person from whom you're collecting the data, and also you need to inform them as to how you're going to process it, and the security measures that the collector is going to take. So can you throw a little more bit light on the fact that all the data which is being floating around everywhere, even for, let's say, for this conference, we had given our data. How do we deal with that? And across the globe, it's not one restricted to one country, because here we are from all different jurisdictions.
So excellent point again, Ray. I mean, what he mentioned was that, when he traveled, so same thing when I traveled from Singapore, right? They basically at Singapore Changi Airport in Terminal 2, if I'm not wrong, where I traveled, it's all using AI. So I put my passport in, I'm talking to a machine. The machine takes the data, everything is in the cloud. But the problem, and my fellow panelists, he will answer the second part. I'll throw him the spanner now. For Singapore, the data privacy laws do not apply to the government. Okay? It's as simple as that. Whether I like it being a citizen or not, it doesn't matter. The government has all the right to collect my data. It's very different in Europe and in Canada, and he can comment on it later on, right? So when the government collects the data, who is the actual people behind or managing that whole cloud service, right? So in the case of Singapore, I was just talking to Vikram earlier on, right? It's managed by Infosys, the Indian company. They have got the entire back engine of Singapore government. Okay? So everything is in the cloud. Where in the cloud? It's in the cloud. Which jurisdiction applies?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. And that's where the tech companies have problem with China. And China has a problem with tech companies. Right? So, for me, as much as I didn't like my data being collected, if I don't do that, I can't come to Dubai. The government is saying very simple, no, talk to the machine. So I talked to the machine. So when I landed at Dubai airport this morning at 2 a.m., which was at the Emirates terminal, and they make you walk a lot, again you can see there is a lot of cameras, a lot of images all being taken. Now, I may not like it. Do I have a choice? You got no choice. So I think it is a tough thing when it comes to government. And that's why, come back to my first point, you as the data subject, as what they call it in Europe, or in Asia, we call it the individual, need to know what is the purpose, that means the C, when they're collecting. How are they going to use it? How are they going to dispose and store it? So in Singapore, they tell you we will use it as per the law. What is the law? It's for the law to define. Okay? So they are very, very clear about it. So I will let over to you, sir.
So I think, thanks Sanjeev, and I have a follow-up question to Ioannis on this. What I felt, during what Sanjeev was talking about, can there be a data holocaust? As in, if one center is collecting all our biometrics in one center, one company is doing it, and you can obviously add to the concept that Sanjeev has built on, but also if you can answer the question, if suppose one company decides to shut the server, will all our data be gone, and none of the servers of the airports or offices, biometric systems will stop working? Can that be stopped? And how? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's indeed an excellent point, and thank you, many thanks for that, because it touches upon a core privacy principle which is called transparency. So the principle of transparency is absolutely critical in the new European privacy regime. And this principle of transparency mandates all organizations, as we call it, data controllers, to proactively inform the people, the data subjects, on the purposes that their personal data are collected, where this personal data is going to be stored, for how long, where it's going to be transferred, and what measures have they taken to secure this data. So, in my opinion, the difference between the GDPR and the other European privacy laws versus the privacy regimes in other countries is exactly the criticality of this transparency principle. As my fellow panelist very rightly pointed out, this is not automatic in other privacy regimes. So people may do not know why their data is being collected, where it's going to be stored, to whom, if at all, is going to be transferred, and for how long is this data going to be retained. And this lack of transparency creates many issues, creates uncertainty, creates confusion, and doubts. So one of the key aspects of harmonization would be to, let's say, expand this transparency principle to a global standard.
Thanks for that. That's very interesting because I think my next question is quite connected to that. So when you say that there's, in the dissemination which happens to people who are sharing data around the world, there's confusion, and one of the reasons why there is confusion is because we are not certain, or we don't know, we don't have the knowledge of what the other jurisdiction has to offer from one jurisdiction to the other. So I mean, for instance, there are, and I think before the panel discussion started, me and Rawan, we were talking on this point. So I would pose this question to Rawan, that what in your opinion, I mean, what Ioannis was hinting at was that there is confusion because probably we don't have, I mean, we are busy working in our own jurisdictions, and so we don't know what's there in the other jurisdiction. So, what's your opinion as to the challenges that would come to us if we try to harmonize the data privacy laws around the world?
Thank you, Ray. As I said before, it's very important for global data harmonization because every country, I think the local laws and regulation in each and every country is rigid. Some certain countries are rigid to their laws and regulation, and they want to apply it, and the residents there, they have to comply with the laws and regulation. When we have like a convention between countries or international agreement to have a global data privacy law like GDPR or European or any other law or regulation, it will be more practical. At least when you go or travel all over the world, you will know which jurisdiction will apply to you. However, this will not be easy unless all countries have one convention or agreement. However, UAE Protection Data Law number 45 of 2021, I think it harmonized the data privacy or data protection because most of its common things, it's from GDPR, about personal data, about sensitivity of the data, confidentiality, how to secure it, because it's a risk. Data floating, it's a risk all over the world. What organizations has to be do, how to protect their data, sensitive data, because for example, in any organization, the HR, the legal department, the finance, they have the data of all the employees. This is very important. So the employee in each company is the owner of the data. He will transfer this ownership to the company. So this company has to take proper management in order not to disclose this risk, because this is a very big risk and high risk. They have to be transparent. However, they have not to share the data unless there is consent from the original data owner, he is the employee. Even they cannot share it with governmental authorities unless there is, for example, a letter from the government or letter from the judicial committee or letter from the court that we need this data. Otherwise, it has not to be disclosed to any third party or shared with any third party. When we are doing, for example, we want to share our data, we do the KYC, know your customer or know your supplier, in order to understand who we are dealing with, and we do NDA agreement, non-disclosure agreement, before sharing any data, in at least to help, and our data will not flow to any third party, and reduce the risk for sharing this data. As well, it will be part of our confidentiality agreement when we deal with any third party from legal perspective. And we put all the data sharing, data privacy, the NDA annexure as part of any agreement we will do with any third party.
So I remember when you spoke about KYC, the very interesting incident which happened recently with me. And, I think it would also be a nice anecdote for this panel discussion. One of the clients that we were dealing with, they were producers of a product, of a machine, like a photocopier machine, or scanner, and they were selling those scanners in India, and every scanner would have a barcode on them. And what used to happen, that they said that whenever something goes wrong with our product, you use it by using an app on your cell phone, you scan the barcode, and the information would travel from India to actually Japan. It'll be stored there, and it's only a QR code. So the query from the client was that, do we need to comply with data privacy laws in India? And their view was that you wouldn't have to, because it's a scanning of the barcode, and basically barcode is not private information, because you cannot identify a person with that code. You can identify a machine, but not the code. But when that query came to us, we delved deep into it. And then we realized that actually the phone, the app that you download on your phones, whenever you're scanning and sending something, your phone details they are transmitted. So ultimately, you can be identified, because your every phone has a machine number, and actually they can take down your mobile number from there. And once they've got the mobile number, then they connect with the service provider, and they can get all your details. So ultimately, all those informations were being carried over to the server where these information were being stored. So sometimes we are faced with situations where we, at the first instance, think that this is not private data. And then when we delve deep into it, we realize that, oh, this is actually private data from in a different country. So they had their own laws as per which they said that this is not private data. But we gave a different opinion. And then we later supported that opinion with a few judgments from the Supreme Court of India. So I think what I mean to say is that, as you said, KYC, we take down KYC. That's a direct form of private data. But there are many hidden forms of collection of private data which people are not aware of. So I think if Mr. Ioannis can take up that and let us know what, in his experience, certain such interesting cases you've come across wherein hidden private data is being transmitted and the clients are not aware of the compliance issues?
This is also another very interesting point in my view, because it touches upon the thousands of, let's say, day-to-day applications of data transfers and data storage around the world. There is another core privacy principle, which is called privacy by design. So this principle has been a best practice prior to the GDPR, and after the GDPR came into force, it became mandatory. And this principle, in very simple words, practically mandates that in every product or in every service that you are about to launch, you have to incorporate privacy as a default setting. You have to incorporate privacy into the design phase of your product or service. So in the example that you brought up, Ray, clearly there are data involved. Clearly there is processing of data by accessing the scanner. By scanning the barcode, you get access, immediate access to the data stored into this machine. So since you get access, you can have also personal data stored therein. And by accessing them is exactly the same as copying them. So this principle of privacy by design has to do with minimization of storage. So this data should not be stored in the first place in the scanner, or they should be stored, but for a particular period, and then should be eliminated.
When you
It's exactly the same like in the CCTV cameras. It's exactly the same principle.
When you say particular period, is that a very short period of time, or like maybe 1 day or 24 hours or something like that?
Yeah, it could be 24 hours. For instance, through the access card to enter a room, your data is being stored in the access card, but usually after 24 hours, it's being deleted automatically. So the same should happen, and this is one of the many applications of privacy by design. So you design your app, you design your product in a way that privacy is incorporated therein.
Understood, understood. So Sanjeev was telling us about a story before while we were having coffee outside about one of the incidents where certain personal information was passed to 51 people who were not supposed to receive it. In such situation, and if you can narrate the incident, and in such situation, in your view, what can be done to save the privacy of the person?
Okay, so it's again an excellent question. So before I answer that question, I just want to add on to what my both panelists, my right and my left, have said. Right, two very important points on privacy by design, which is mandated in Europe. Right, when you talk about new product implementation or using new technology, whereas in Asia, privacy by design or privacy impact assessment, as they call it, it's not mandated, right? And then the other point that he brought out was on data anonymization or minimization, right? And how long do you keep the data? For example, if you travel on Singapore Airlines or even any other airline, and if you're a European citizen, right, they ask you, are you a citizen of Europe? And then you put the tick box, yes, right? So they will keep your data for the period for which you're traveling or the duration, right? And once you complete the travel, they will purge your data. So it's mandated, they have to do it. They cannot keep your data forever, right? So it's very, very important that organizations and companies realize that, right? And just to share with you one example, before in Singapore during the COVID time, right? The government basically knew exactly where Sanjeev Gathani was traveling. A to B, B to C, C to D. Because you had to on your Bluetooth And every building that you entered, they knew. Every place that you visited, they knew the date, the time. So if you were a naughty boy or a naughty girl, you would get caught. Because every data they had. Okay? So coming back to answer Ray's question, the example that I gave was one of my clients, right? We were giving them an award because they'd achieved their sales target. So my HR manager, being very smart that the person is, sent out an email saying that congratulations, Ray, congratulations, Sanjeev, you have achieved your targets for the last quarter. Send it to 51 other people who had absolutely nothing to do with it. And my bank account number, my salary was disclosed to them. How cool is that? 51 people that in the company that no need to know my salary, knew my salary, they knew my bank account. And worst of all, the email that it was sent out to is your Gmail and your Hotmail and your Yahoo Mail. So can you imagine how cool is that? And when I asked my HR manager, I said, what have you done? It's okay to share this information. It's not personal data. I said, how it's not personal data? My bank account number is different from hers. Yeah. Am I correct? My salary is different from hers, right? And exactly what he said, it's personal identifiable information. I can connect the two. And it was a boo-boo mate. Right? And just to add one more thing, and then I'll pass back to you, Ray. Today we are living in the world of IoT, Internet of Things. Everything is connected. Right? There is nothing that is not connected. Tell me what is not connected. Today you have your mobile phone. Every mobile phone has got an IMEI number. Am I right? By virtue of that, I can basically know what you're doing and I can get all the information that it's needed. So I just want to share with you one experiment that I did. And I'm not suggesting you all do it. So please do not do it. I'm putting the disclaimer right up front. Before you all come and sue me because they're all lawyers here, I don't want to get sued. So I did this simple experiment. I developed an app under my own company. Okay, and nothing illegal about that. You're allowed to do that. I got developers from China and Russia to do it. And basically this app, it's a app that, collects information. And I said that, I'm doing a survey and the first prize is around the world business class trip. It doesn't matter whether I actually fulfill it or not. Okay, it's round the world business class. And one of the T's and C's inside there, which I embedded, and he can comment on it and you can comment, right, is you will give me your firstborn child. Are you with me? If you're a man or woman, of course you are in marriage, we say legally, your firstborn child will be given to my company. Okay? Yeah, you all laugh. Believe me. Yeah, if you have one. I mean, most of them have more than one. But I had 500 people who signed up and everybody ticked and were willing to give me their firstborn child. Because they never read the T's and C's. So when you are talking about what you said, the apps, all the T's and C's are so fine printed that you don't even know. Right? And just to add a simple twist to it, if you order pizza in your own country, right, through your mobile, why does Pizza Hut need to know or have access, or Domino's, or whatever pizza that you have, to your photo album of your phone? But if you don't give them the access, you cannot go the next step. That's exactly what happened to me when I booked my hotel booking at Crown Plaza through Expedia, through my phone. They wanted access to my address book. They wanted access to my photo album, to my contacts. What has this got to do with me making a booking at the hotel? Food for thought. Okay, so I think I talked enough already.
Those are interesting points, but I think Ioannis wants to add something on that, right?
No, actually, that's exactly, Sanjeev, that's really excellent points. That's exactly ties back to my earlier point on privacy by design. So these apps should never allow access to your address book or your photos, never. By design, they should prevent it.
Correct.
And that's exactly the situation. If someone tries to, let's say, to check the most popular apps around the world globally, it's not only in Europe, globally, we will find that 8 out of 10, they are not privacy compliant. They're not. Because, for instance, take a health app. You take a run, you have your app, your run static. It's by coincidence the example to measure your heartbeat, to measure your blood pressure, to exactly identify the exact location where you run. And then the app automatically shares this information on the media without your consent. So this is a classical example. It has to do with health apps as well. So you upload an X-ray in the app to get a medical opinion, and this, you make a mistake. You want to delete it. You cannot. Once you upload it, as Sanjeev said, it's up in the cloud. Which cloud? Nobody knows.
God knows.
God knows.
You want to add something, Rawan?
Yeah, I want to say a comment related to Facebook and other social media.
Rawan, I think.
I want to say a comment related to Facebook or other social media like Instagram or whatever. Please don't share private information, especially your, or put the password as, for example, your date of birth or your children. There is some very smart hackers, they know everything. And not just hackers, there's a lot of people behind the scenes, they know everything. And don't share your, for example, private occasions, because everyone know, I went to this restaurant, I have to put my pictures. They know everything. They know your connection. They know, even there is some psychiatrists, they are analyzing how you think, what even you eat. They know everything about you by your picture, by everything. So please be careful. And I want also to comment related to the HR. You can sue the HR, Ray. This is from legal perspective. Secondly, an investigation has to be done internally inside the company. Third, the legal and compliance advisor or professional in your company, plus investigation, they have to make a legal register to assign responsibility, like visa and passports. We all, if we are residents in UAE, they will take our passports, our visa, our children's passports in order to do the residency. So they know everything. Even sometimes they take the rent of the house rent contract in order to apply for the residency. So we have to be careful when sharing. Don't share via WhatsApp, please. Don't share your passports. It has to be a secure email. This is also another important thing. No, don't say, I am busy. Please don't share WhatsApp. WhatsApp is not secure. I'm not telling anything about WhatsApp. However, don't share your personal important visa or passport or your identity through social media. This is also very important. And in any organization, reputable organization, they have to assign accountability and responsibility to each department, especially the HR department, because they have all the sensitive and personal information. They will be liable, legally liable. This is very important. That's it. Thank you.
Sorry, just one thing I want to add to all my fellow professionals down here. How many of you here are using the free Wi-Fi that is provided for by the hotel?
Just.
Hands up, please.
Oh my God.
Come on, ladies and gentlemen, you can do better than that. So my free advice to you, when it's free means you are free. When it's free means you are free. How do you know who is not watching what you're doing now? Food for thought. Think about it. Because to hack whatever that you are using now, it would take, and not that I'm going to do it, please don't think that I'm a bad guy, I'm a very good guy. It'll take less than 45 seconds, right, sir? For me to find out everything about the young lady down there who said that, you're using the free Wi-Fi. It's as
That's
simple as that.
Actually, somebody wise told me once that nothing comes for free.
Exactly, no free lunch in life.
No free lunches. So if you are getting something for free, that means they are earning out of you. So, but I think we are running short of time. One last question, which I think I need to pose to the panelists, is that do you think it is time that, like how the arbitration laws evolved in the world, around the world, and then all the countries came together and they came up with the Geneva Convention and the New York Convention? That is point number one, and your comments on that, because the life becomes very simple once you have an arbitration clause in the agreement. And if you're a Geneva Convention country, everybody knows the law. A New York Convention country, we know the law. So it's very simple for two parties across the world to enter into agreements. Is it time for global privacy laws to also come to that level? And your thoughts on that. And I think we'll then open for question and answer rounds. Yeah.
So I believe that now it's the perfect time. As earlier mentioned, there were huge gaps between the different privacy regimes in the recent past, but now we have the GDPR, we have the CCPA in the US, and the new Data Protection Act. We have the new Asian privacy laws, as Rawan mentioned, the new UAE data protection law, the new law, the cybersecurity law in China, the other privacy regimes that have many commonalities. So it's definitely the right time to harmonize in data transfers, in data security, in expanding the principle of transparency. And there are many common aspects that can be harmonized, in my view.
Sanjeev?
Yes, so just to add to what has been said, so Asia, we have started this already. So in Asia, we got this thing called the APAC, right? It's all the Asian economies, right? They've come together, exactly what he's saying, to harmonize the privacy laws, just like what they have done for finance. So all those who are in finance, IFRS, right? International Financial Reporting Standards. They have harmonized it across the globe. So I think it's just a matter of time. And I think this will definitely take off because US has got its own laws when you talk about data transfer out of the US and out of Europe, right? So it's a matter of time. And the sooner we do it, the better for us all. Because the world has changed, and I think COVID-19 has taught us the new way to live life.
Rawan?
Thank you for everything. This is first. Second, I think this is the time for global harmonization for data protection and privacy, because we will reduce the risk of data floating. Because as we said before, data is floating all over the world and we don't know in which cloud it is, especially all our personal and sensitive data. And it's a time manner, as my fellow say. I wish it will be as soon as possible.
Thank you so much. I think, in my view, just to conclude this topic, I think it's important to at least, the legal communities and the business communities around the world should come together and at least agree to a minimum standards of global privacy laws, because every country has a different cultural background. For instance, I can tell you about India. There are many, at times, it's been an agrarian economy. So majority of the people over there have been farmers. So a lot of government policies are built around farmers. And a lot of subsidies, they go directly into the bank accounts of farmers, especially now, because a lot of bank accounts have been opened for farmers. So I think what I'm trying to say is that every country has its own unique cultural backdrop with which the laws are framed in that particular country. But having said that, I think data is something which, I mean, around the world we should sit, and then the legal communities and business communities should sit and decide on certain minimum standards for data being shared around the world, and I think finance included, because financial reportings are everywhere, because you have valuations going from here to there for investment purposes. So I think that's thank you for your views on this issue, and I think I can open the floor for questions.
Thank you very much, panelists. That was a lot of valuable insight. There is a microphone in the center of the room. This is the new way, ladies and gentlemen. So please feel free to stand right in the center and ask away. Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, if you ask for data harmonization, there's another side of the coin. I mean, I agree with everything that you've said. Every point is a valid point that you've discussed. But how do you deal with harmonization when it comes to developing countries or underdeveloped countries? Can you ask them to comply with those data privacy regulations which are done by the US or by the EU? And if that is so, I mean, I know you give the reference of arbitration and the financial reporting, but these are voluntary processes. Data privacy is not a voluntary process. I mean, as you all mentioned, it's absolutely involuntary. You're compelled to do things in a situation where you don't have a choice. So how do you manage the developing countries or the underdeveloped countries?
I think all four of us can answer that, so you need to tell us whether you're asking Rawan, me, or Sanjeev.
I mean, anyone who has an opinion on this. I mean,
Yeah.
because all four of you said about data harmonization is required, and I agree with it. But how do you deal with this?
Thank you for your question. This is very important one. However, from legal perspective, for example, when we do NDA or any agreement, we will choose which jurisdiction we will comply with. For example, if we are in UAE, we'll choose the UAE data protection or data privacy law because we are in UAE. Unless we choose another jurisdiction, EU or Asia or whatever, what else jurisdiction, this is very important, using the jurisdiction. This is upon agreement between you and the other party when you do any agreement. So choosing like arbitration, you choose arbitration in the IFC or you choose arbitration in UK, it's the same. Or litigation, when there is a dispute between you and the other party, we choose UAE courts, or you choose Jordanian courts, or you choose UK courts. It depends on the agreement. This is the most important. And sometimes it depends on, if there is dispute, what is the cheapest way for this dispute. It will be in UAE, it will be more cheaper than UK or US. So also this is another point of view.
Good morning. First of all, thank you very much actually for this important topic that's now is more arising, and we have witnessed new laws that have been enacted in the region, including UAE, KSA. Okay, I have been all the time actually talking about data privacy because I wrote about those things 20 years back in my PhD thesis. And one of my key issues and key concerns actually is using the data for marketing purposes. So what's your take actually about what Facebook is doing and other social media, but in specific Facebook, because it has been used or misused actually dramatically in so many occasions by big names, and we know what happened with Cambridge Analytica, for example, okay, how they manipulated the data, and what sort of protections that we can put in place to protect, our personal data from misuse under the coverage which is called, marketing utilization, and what sort of actually interference the regulators can really impose in terms of safeguarding our personal data from not being misused for purposes which is not the original purpose that, the authorization or the consent that had been given to the, the Facebook or the, any other social media platform to be used. So the extent where we can, protect ourselves, and sometimes what sort of, education the users should know and how to use and to protect their personal data when it comes to any social media platform. Sorry, I have another 10 questions, but I'll stop just here. Thank you.
So I would like to take up this question, if I may, if my co-panelists agree, because it's one of my favorite topics, the one that you brought up. Actually, the two major global privacy laws, the GDPR and the CCPA, have 4 principles in common. That's the principle of accountability, transparency, data minimization, and data security. So this could be the basis for the global privacy laws harmonization, in my view, starting from these 4 elements. But to come to your point, it all ties back to transparency. So if you inform the person, the data subject, for what purpose you collect the data, you cannot use it for a different purpose. It's illegal. It immediately becomes illegal. So how you inform it? Through the privacy notice, through the website. Everybody, every organization is obliged to have a privacy notice on the website. And this privacy notice, amongst other information, has to inform the visitor of the website for what purpose they collect and use the personal data. And they cannot use it for any other purpose unless the data subject gives informed and specific consent. So it immediately becomes illegal. It's as simple as that.
Yes, so just to add on to what I have said and to the question, it's an excellent question. So Facebook is known in the marketplace for what they have done. And I believe there is a landmark case in Europe where there was a guy that sued Facebook, right? Because he wrote to Facebook and said that give me what personal data you have of me. And prior to that, he had deleted his account. Facebook gave him 4 disks of his own personal data, and then he sued them in court and he won. So it's a landmark case in Europe. But the more important thing, like what my fellow panelists said, that 4 principles that are in CCPA and also GDPR. That's one aspect. But the more important part is what my fellow panelists on my left said, it's what you put on the social media. We as humans love to show off, right? If you come to Dubai, you want to tell the whole world you went to Dubai, right? If you went to stay in the Crown Plaza, you want to put what you do in your bedroom on the Facebook. For what? Why do you want to tell the whole world what you did? So if you feed that information to the social media platform, they are going to use it, right? And the point again on the privacy notice where you put up on your website, in Europe, they are very clear. It has to be plain vanilla. Plain vanilla means not your vanilla ice cream. Huh? The English got to be simple. You cannot put the Queen's English where people don't understand. So your marketing question, what you said, it's very interesting. In Singapore, we have this huge debate between the Direct Marketing Association of Singapore and all the companies, right? And we clearly now, under Singapore law, privacy law, you need to explicitly state the purpose of you collecting the data, and you have to give the individual the option to opt out. Not by default, the tick box. The person has to tick electronically, saying, I opt in, opt out. And you cannot then threaten the person or tell the person that, oh, if you don't tick this way, I won't provide you the service. Because there are many companies that do that. But your question is excellent and we can talk all day about it, but I don't think we have all day.
I'm sorry,
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are all out of time. Please put your hands together for this incredible panel. Oh, fantastic.